I want to have a slightly different conversation about Alice Springs than the one everyone has heard, which is Alice Springs going to become our Chicago? Which is, there are known trouble spots in places like the United States, there are known trouble spots in Chicago as a place where black-on-black violence
Subway, I think, is one.
Is tolerated, but also is essentially ignored. All of those numbers about mass shootings and deaths by guns and all of that are heavily affected by what's happening in Chicago. But because it's only Fox News that talks about it, somehow essentially it's an ignorable issue. Is Alice Springs going to be turned by the left into the Chicago? This thing where, there's some bad news out of there. Every now and then there'll be a particularly horrible story we can't ignore. But as we've seen here with Alice Springs, within 1.5 weeks, we're on to white supremacy in the meeting and how did the ABC report it. And we've gone off in 100 directions from the actual problem. And as soon as we move from the actual problem, it's the same cycle that's always been there around the reporting of these issues.
Yeah, well, apparently the cashless debit card had no impact whatsoever. The alcohol ban had no impact whatsoever. As you said in your opening, Linda Burney said the voice would have made all the difference in the world. Apparently the voice will now make no difference in the world whatsoever, according to Albanese. The Prime Minister just needs to go back, and I said last week, go look at what the Community Affairs Committee looked at over the cashless debit card. Maybe he could read the testimony from Indigenous women who sat in front of us in tears begging us to not take it away, that they weren't being humbugged, that they were able to buy groceries for their children. So if he wants to tell those women who are an Indigenous voice that this will have that it's had no impact, he is kidding himself. But it is not just Alice Springs, and this is what worries me. I've lived in a town with a high Indigenous population. There's lots of towns around, particularly northwest New South Wales, that has significant issues, and particularly for Indigenous children who are finding it safer on the street than in their homes. And this is happening in lots of places, not just Alice Springs, and we cannot pretend that if we fix one place, this whole problem's gone away, because it is in many, many towns.